Alright, so we're going to make some delicious baguettes. Perfect for a caprese or banh mi sandwich. First thing you want really is this pan. It's got perforations between the loaves. It's non-stick and definitely worth it for making baguettes at home. Just 5 ingredients, very flavorful. 1.5 cups of wheat flour, doesn't matter what kind. We've got half a teaspoon of salt, actually slightly more. Half a teaspoon of sugar, actually slightly less. And slightly more than an 1/8 teaspoon of active dry yeast, kind of in the direction of a 1/4 teaspoon. I know that sounds very odd and particular, but it works. And then we've got here 3/4 cup water between 50 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Actually, before I put the water in, I want to mix these ingredients. All right. Because I don't use a scale, it could be that the flour might need a little more water, or the mixture might need a little more flour. You just get a feel for it. The baguette dough is a pretty wet dough. And I like to use a fork because we tried it the first time with our hands and it's lots of fun. My son loved it, but very messy. Now, I can tell already we're going to need just a little bit more water. It's a little on the dry side. I might have put in too much, but no, I think it'll be good. Yeah, one day I'm going to get a scale, I guess. I don't know. I don't really have room on my counter. You get a feel for it. Okay, that's good. That looks good. That's kind of making a nice ball. All right, looks good. You're just going to put a dish towel over it. All right, now we're going to say goodnight and let it sleep for 12 hours. All right, good morning. It's time to wake up. Baguettes now. Yeah, it's pretty wet, the stove, but a little flour there. We're just gonna let gravity take this guy out. It's coming out. I will say this dough right now that I'm looking at, it's a little bit on the wetter side than I'm used to. You got to be able to handle it. If it's too wet, you can add a little bit of flour. Fold it into itself like you would with many other doughs. Okay, we're just going to let that sit now for about 10 minutes. Alright, 10 minutes later, we're going to just separate this into 3 baguettes. If you have a pan with 4, you can do 4. Also, I forgot to mention, you can double this recipe if you want. If you want to make bigger baguettes or more. This is the part where a scale would be nice, I guess. Add to this one. One of these is going to be smaller than the other. Now we're going to do our first round of shaping. Very simple. You're just going to fold it in. And then gently roll it. So it's starting to have a baguette shape to it. Gently roll. Here's the big one. Those sit for just a few minutes. And when you do the final shaping, you'll do them in order. Okay. All right, they've been sitting for 5 or 10 minutes. Should be good to go. Hold flour. All right. I'm just going to stretch this out. It's a little too tacky. Let's add a little flour. I'm going to roll it in to the middle on this side. Make a little seam, press it in. Okay, going to do the same thing on the other side. A little too tacky. There we go. Stretch it like that. Then roll it into the middle with the seam again. Press it in. Okay. You could roll it. I just sort of stretch it and maybe roll the edges a bit. I don't get it too pointy on the end because it burns more that way. Kind of like it like this. There. And I put it seam side down. I put it in this pan where it's going to proof for an hour. You're not going to move it. That's a nice thing about this pan. Once it's proofed, you don't have to move the baguette, which is pretty tricky. I've seen videos. You need a special like wooden thing. Don't need that with this pan. You can kind of adjust the thickness of your baguette here. If you like stubbier, fatter ones, you can do that. But this is the way we like it for sandwiches, something like this. Yeah, something like that. These are going to proof now for 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how hot or cold your house is. Put it in a draft-free spot. Half an hour before baking, you're going to preheat the oven. 250 Celsius, which is about 480 Fahrenheit. So a couple minutes before you start baking, you want to put about a cup of water in a bottom tray. This is going to give the baguettes the steam they need. You see here on the grill, I've got a cast iron griddle. You can use a baking steel or a pizza stone. You actually don't need one of these things, but it will help with the crustiness. All right, so the bread's been proofing for about an hour. Wow, this is, yeah, the indent is holding. That's what you want to see. So a traditional baguette, you do 5 cuts. Here I do about 3. They should overlap and be sort of like this. Fairly deep. They go from end to end and they overlap. The reason you want to make these slits is so steam can escape out here and the baguette doesn't burst on the sides. You can buy a fancy tool or use a razor blade. Maybe the fancy tool works better, but it does the job. So in addition to the steam we got going in the oven, we're going to spray these. We're also going to spray these halfway through the baking. Important for the crispy, flaky crust. All right, you want to bake these for 21 minutes. About 10 minutes into the baking, you want to reapply the water. You check the bottom tray. You still want a little water left in there. About 2/3 through baking, all the water should evaporate to help finish off the crust. And midway through the baking now, we're going to turn it down to 230, which is 450 Fahrenheit. Alrighty, 21 minutes. And they look like they came out pretty good. These can be very crusty. In 5 minutes or so, I'm going to open one of these up. Cool. Look at that. That's very nice. Enjoy. For this sandwich, the Caprese, I like to pull out the doughy dough, so it's mostly crust. You want to cut your mozzarella and tomato in equal slices. Salt those tomatoes. You're going to have an olive oil salt mixture that you're going to baste your bread with, and to coat the tomatoes and mozzarella. Plenty of basil in there, chopped up nicely, and then sprinkle some balsamic. Pure magic.